Hello and welcome back to Mac at the Movies. It's a little chilly out there today, so I got my hot cup of coffee. Keep me nice and toasty. I do most of my filming, as most of you probably don't know, in an attic for the time being. It was the only place I had room and the privacy to do this without people entering and just, cutting into the recording with God knows what and everything else. So, this room pretty much holds whatever temperature it is outside. It's an insulated attic, but it's an attic nonetheless. So it's super chilly up here. So if you catch me shivering, you know why. But today's film that I want to review for you is the 1999 film Blast from the Past. Love this movie. It was released February 12th, 1999. That just happens to be a coincidence. I picked this movie out not having realized that at first, but I find it quite apropos that it was released on the same weekend 21 years ago. So, this film was released by New Line Cinemas, directed by Hugh Wilson, who also directed another Brendan Fraser movie, Dudley Do-Right. He also did Police Academy and The First Wives Club. The actors in this film, a pretty A-list set of actors. We got the Weber family is comprised of Brendan Fraser as Adam, Christopher Walken as Calvin, Sissy Spacek as Helen, and then you have the love interest, Alicia Silverstone, who plays Eve, and then you have Dave Foley, who plays Troy. And I really love Dave Foley in this film. If any of y'all know any of his other films, I don't think I know a whole heck of a lot, but I do know It's Pat the movie, the SNL movie. He plays Chris in that, and I love him in that film, and I love him in this film. He's just, he's hilarious. There's a scene toward the end of the film where he's teaching Adam how to drive a little bit, and he keeps on getting rocky with like learning how to drive, and it's constant like slamming on the brakes, and he says GD, and Adam slams on the brakes, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Adam. I used the Lord's name in vain again." And he gets excited and runs out to check out an adult bookstore and completely confuses Troy, who Dave plays. But that's later in the movie. Let's start at the beginning of the movie. So this film starts out. It is based in 1962, I believe. I didn't jot that part down on my notes. But yes, it was based 1962, and it starts out, there's a party at the Weber home. Calvin is like nobody really knows what he does. He's very smart. I think he was like a scientist for Caltech or something like that. And his wife is, it's your normal stay-at-home mom in the 60s. And they're just having a party with a bunch of friends. And this is around the Cold War, so you had stuff on the news come on. Everyone kind of hunkers down and watches the news, takes away from the party. And after the news, Calvin decides to dismiss everyone from the party. Thank you for coming, but due to these times, we should probably go home and spend time with their families. So after everyone leaves, Calvin and Helen, they go down to the bomb shelter. Calvin made a bomb shelter in the backyard, so like a fallout shelter. So if anything did happen, they would have a place to go to for the 35 years it takes for the radiation to subside, and whatever the half-life and all that, little bit that I remember from science. But so they go down there, and when they're down there, there's a radio message that he heard on like an emergency radio about, a plane going somewhere, and that there might be an attack. And so when they go down there, before they have a chance to close the door, uh, the plane, I guess, malfunctioned when it was in the air. Pilot ejects and the plane crash lands into the house. Calvin thinks that it was a bomb that went off, and all the levels on the gauges are spiking, and he's like, oh my god. And they lock everything down. It's automatic locks that's set for 35 years. And so for 35 years they're down there. The wife at the time, Helen, played by Sissy Spacek, she was pregnant, and in the film. And so that, while they're down there, they have the child, who is later Brendan Fraser, and he grows up down there in the fallout shelter. So while he's down there, they raise him like normal. That's all he ends up knowing in the future is the fallout shelter. And that they teach him like normal. I mean, when he was 3 years old, he was reading direct from a book, like the Alice in Wonderland. Through the Looking Glass. They were reading, and he was just reading it out loud, and like you or I could read it, pretty much. And then he teaches them Latin, and they go through all the normal courses, and he can do that because he's just super smart himself. Calvin is. And then in the downtime, they have, like, he tries to teach him things like sports, like baseball, but he doesn't quite get it because they can't really play baseball down there. And so he tries to explain it to him, but it just turns into, but why do they do that? And it's like, because they must. And later on in the film, Adam goes to a baseball game, and he's like, okay, I get it now. It's, he has to do that because he must. And I think it's funny because everyone just looks at him like, you don't understand baseball? Okay. But the not that I can say much about it. I don't understand much of baseball other than you hit the ball and run to a base. But but Adam learns how to dance down there. He learns how to fight. Everything that his parents can do to kind of promote a normal sense of living. 35 years later, they wake up to the locks just popping open, and so Calvin goes up to check things out. He puts on that yellow suit, like similar to what Marty McFly wore in Back to the Future. So he has the yellow suit and the flashlight, and he comes up there, and he sees a homeless man that had been living in a bar that had been built over what their old house used to be. And he's like, leave my elevator alone. And then he goes out to explore the world, and he finds out that 1990s America is way different than 1960s America. And he sees people getting sick in the streets, people pointing guns at other people, and it's just like a squirt gun, but they're still pointing guns at people. And I think my favorite part is this lady comes up and is like, excuse me, do you have a light? And he's like, sorry, I don't. Or I guess maybe he had a match or something with, yeah, he had a match or something with him because she lights the cigarette. But he looks at her and he's like, oh, so you survived the blast. And she's like, well, you know what the song says, a country boy can survive. And he's like, excuse me, did you say that you were a country boy? And she's like, well, honey, I can be a boy if you want me to be a boy, and I can be a girl if you want me to be a girl. And he's very confused, very lost, because, he came from the 60s. Like, I don't think that was so much of a thing that was present out in the open. And the woman's just like, and if you want, it's going to be, $200, and if you act now, I'll even throw in some lawn furniture. And he's like, what? Like, later he's talking to his wife, and he's like, somebody tried to sell me their body, and she offered lawn furniture as a come on. So it's, it's definitely got that kind of, like, I like to see that in movies where people, like there's that distance of time, and like they wake up and it's essentially like a whole new world almost, like a more realistic version of Idiocracy, if you will. um, Although right now I think Idiocracy is a pretty close tie-in to how the world is functioning, but I digress. The the So he runs away from the hooker, and he runs into an adult bookshop, and all you hear is just him screaming. So he makes his way back to the fallout shelter, where he explains everything that he saw, and in the process and in an argument he has a heart attack, and so Adam has to go up top to get supplies, do what he needs to do to come back so they can lock the doors back for another 10 years or so, to keep all the dangerous people away. So, Adam gets his money. Earlier in the film, his dad gave him a bunch of baseball cards that were essentially worthless because the bomb landed, or the bomb dropped. And so he takes those and some stock certificates that he got from, I think, like IBM or Apple or something like that. And he goes up top. He takes the advice from his father to stay away from the adult bookstores because of invisible poisonous gas. And so it's funny, when he's up there, he sees an adult bookstore, and he's like, "Everybody, run away! Invisible poisonous gas!" And he creates a minor frenzy, if you will. But he gets out. He sees the sky for the first time, and it's a big to-do for him, rightfully so. Like, I couldn't tell you what it was like the first time I ever saw the sky, and, knew what it was. I mean, I think it's hard, and I think they did a good job in this film of portraying somebody who's seen the sky for the first time. I think Brendan Fraser did an incredible job at that. And the way they sort of, they opened the door and they brought him out, it was very, like, when you go outside after a movie or something like that, and everything's so bright, and it was like that for him. So I mean, he's only ever known Inside Underground, fluorescent bulbs, and then he comes up to a dark room, and then the first thing he opens the door to is daylight. So I think they did a great job with portraying somebody seeing the sky for the first time. And the so he goes out, and he's seeing the world. He gets on a bus. He's trying to find a grocery store. He gets a grocery store. He meets a very tweaky fella on the bus, and he's just like, he's talking to him, very confused why the driver of the bus wouldn't take his $100 bill. And he he's talking with the tweaky guy, and he's just like, my mother told me I needed to find a standing Holiday Inn. I need to go to the grocery store. He asked the man if he has a gun, and the man just kind of shakes his head tweaky like, and Adam's like, "Well, thank you for not waving your gun around in the air, scary like." And the guy just kind of looks at him like, "Shut up!" Like, you don't say that in public. So people just kind of look around and don't know how to really respond to Adam. But Adam goes to the grocery store. He realizes quick that he doesn't have enough cash to get all the supplies he needs. Like, half his money that he currently had would go to pretty much just frozen hamburger meat. So he looks around, finds a baseball card shop, where he ends up meeting Eve, Alicia Silverstone's character, and he's trying to sell his baseball cards. The shop owner's like, his mind is blown. He's seeing a cigar box filled with baseball cards that are worth millions alone. And she steps out and says, do yourself a favor and leave with those cards, because this one right here is worth like $6,000 all by its itty bitty little self. And, the store owner gets mad and they leave. Essentially, Adam ends up asking her for a ride to the Holiday Inn. This coffee is getting cold quick. But so she takes him to the Holiday Inn, and he pays her a baseball card for the trip, and he checks in. It's funny. She's like, okay, I need a card for the room. And so he, picks out a baseball card and hands it to her, and she just looks baffled. So he ends up getting the room. Next day, Eve comes back, has to return the card. She's like, I can't accept this. This is way too much money just for a car ride. Somebody with a conscience. So they end up making an agreement that she will help sell off his baseball cards to get the money needed for supplies and everything for the fallout shelter. He agrees to paying her $1,000 a week, which, boy, howdy, would that be a nice chunk of change to get paycheck every week, especially in the 90s. I don't know what that, like, I think I was watching High Fidelity the other day, and I think, what's her name? The girl in the movie, John Cusack's girlfriend in the film, Laura. She made, like, I think $60,000 or $70,000 a year doing her job. So, who knows, maybe in the 90s that was the norm, but I don't think so. I think that's about the norm now. Maybe not even that, depending on how good of a job you have. Again, I'm going down a rabbit hole. So they, essentially, he hires her at the money they agreed to, and she picks him up, and they start going around, and they get started. One thing I find really hilarious is they get to Eve's house to kind of start, after they got started doing all the shopping and buying everything like that. And when they show up at Eve's house, Eve's ex-boyfriend is leaving. Her ex-boyfriend in the film is Nathan Fillion. I forgot he was in it, but he plays Cliff, the evil ex-boyfriend, the legs, hair, and butt, if you will, that they talk about earlier in the film. That they were talking about, Eve was discussing about how all guys are interested in is legs, or the hair, legs, and butt, and it just so happens that's what she's interested in. And Adam's like, I think it's the eyes, but she ends up introducing him, and she's like, what are you even here for? And he's like, I had to pick up some of my stuff. And she's like, stuff, looks in the box of what, your underwear? And he's like, these are Ralph Lauren's. And he leaves and does his thing. Adam and Eve go into the house, and Adam's like, Eve, can I ask you a question? Why does Cliff like to wear another man's underpants? So he had no clue that it was a brand. He just thought it was another man's underwear, and that for some odd reason he wore it. So he meets Cliff, and then the film segues into him meeting Troy, Eve's roommate. And so in the film, if you haven't seen it, Adam's very clueless to the world around him, and just different things like just he's very old in style. So Eve introduces Troy and says Troy's gay, and Adam just knows the definition of gay being happy and joyful. So he just looks at Troy and he's like, good for you. And Troy's like, well, we try. So he just looks a little clueless, and he's just like, all right, fair enough. But they have a good evening where Troy tries to find out more about Adam, and Eve kind of plays this weird psychic role, and it's just a silly moment. So Troy ends up. Troy and Adam become friends in the process. Troy takes Adam out to go shopping to get clothes, and then gets rollerblades, and a lot of humor there. Troy ends up Adam and Eve, they work out an agreement to find Adam a wife. Adam wants to find a wife, specifically from Pasadena. His mom earlier in the movie was just like, see if you can find a girl from Pasadena. It's just, something about a girl from Pasadena back in my day. And, girls from the Valley, they always just seemed a little, different. So, he's trying to find a girl from Pasadena. Eve and Troy take him to a nightclub where he's trying to meet a girl. And it's like this old, like, swing nightclub. And so, Adam's right there at home. He knows all the dances. Cliff is there. Cliff tries to start a fight, and Adam knows how to defend himself. And it makes for a very fun scene in the movie. Later, Eve leaves, upset with Adam and Troy. Some funny remarks that happen in that scene. And when Troy returns home later, Eve is just like, all right, where is he? And Troy's like, oh, he left with Sophie, who is a woman that was at the club that Eve hates. So she's freaking out, like worried about Adam, like, you left her with that monster Sophie, and how did you do that? And she ends up leaving to go find him. Was it before that? Like they're discussing Adam. Troy and Eve are discussing Adam, and just the different like irregularities with his like behavior in that like general society. Like it's like he really stepped out of the 1950s or something. So Troy explains that Adam had told him that he thinks that Troy's a gentleman and Eve's a lady. And Eve's like, what does that even mean? And Troy's like, well, I had to look it up myself because I didn't know, but the general definition of a gentleman or a lady is a person that tries to make the people around them as comfortable as they can be, as happy as they can be. And so he referred to him as so. So Eve like runs out to go get Adam, and doesn't realize that Adam's on the way there. Adam spooks her, and a whole thing kind of, he takes her inside because she scraped her leg, and he's going to help her. Troy gives him a little bit of advice in the process, and goes to bed. Adam and Eve start to talk about different things, and he kind of comes clean and says, what happened to him about the bomb and the fallout shelter, and it starts to freak her out a little bit. Eve's like, you need to go home. We'll start this in the morning. So Adam leaves, and the real romance kind of starts to boil all around. The next day, Troy and Adam are going around getting supplies, and Adam sees an adult bookstore, and he gets really excited, slams on the brakes. This is the part earlier I talked about where Troy said GD, and so he gets excited, runs out to the adult bookstore. They get back to Eve's house, Troy and Eve's house, and there's somebody waiting there, and Eve introduces Adam to a clinical psychologist, where I guess she was concerned about everything and essentially committed Adam. Didn't know what to do, he said he wanted to take me underground. I mean, what is that? That's psycho stuff. So, and rightfully so to be concerned about stuff like that. But you know, Adam runs away. He ends up going back home. He gets the gentleman that his father met at the beginning of the movie, said stay away from the elevator. He was waiting there, waiting for him to return. And so he comes in, he's like, I need your help. And so he and his new congregation of people, I guess, think of Adam and the Weber family as like a new modern day saviors. So they come back, and in the process, like, or he comes back and he asks for help to get all the supplies to take back home. So they all help, and then Eve and Troy are worried about, you know, where's Adam? They're trying to find him. They go to the hotel, and that's when they start to uncover a bunch of stuff that is beginning to make more sense. Like, they find toothpaste that's dated in the 60s. They find all this stuff just like neatly laid out. They find the stock certificates, and they call up and find out that Adam is essentially worth millions, like millions upon millions upon millions. And Troy's just like, wow, Eve, you really did it this time. Like, you found a guy that was, you know, perfect, had a lot of money, happy, nice to you, and you have him committed. And she's like, oh no, what did I do? So they continue to try to find him. And then eventually they see him walking down the street. Adam introduces Eve to his family and requests that his parents let him go up, lock the doors for 2 months, and don't ask any questions. They're like, okay. In the process, Eve and Adam, they go up, they have the Weber's home rebuilt in another location, like away from the city and things like that, because they want to reintroduce them to society, but they don't want them to get the culture shock of everything. So they rebuild the house in the country, so it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's open, and they can do things as they wish and please. And, you know, it just ends a very happy ending. Adam buying them a home. All in all, this film, I love it. I remember renting it on VHS when it first came out quite a few times. Later got it on DVD and watched it a lot. And it's still one that I watch. I bust out and watch every year. And, you know, I give it a strong 3 to a light 4. It is a great film. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And another thing that this movie introduced me to, or another person this movie introduced me to, just because of the soundtrack's pretty good too. So definitely check that out. But this particular artist, Perry Como, has a song in the film, has a couple songs in the film, and because, you know, he's one of Adam's favorite artists, he gets referenced quite a bit in the movie. But there's a song called It's a Good Day, and I'll put that in the description below for y'all to check out and listen to. It's a fantastic song. It's just a happy-go-lucky song. So definitely check that one out. But anyway, if you guys have seen this movie, throw it down in the comments below. Tell me what your thoughts are on the movie. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think, this is stupid 90s rom-com? Some people love it, some people hate it. But definitely let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. So, as always, thank you for stopping by the channel. Be good to one another. That's a thing from the movie that his dad does. So, but, you know, be good to one another. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.